Hey guys, welcome to the Vagabond Code. I'm Javel, your guide on your coding journey. In the last video, we implemented the phone number screen. In this video, we will implement the phone input. The phone input has two parts, the country selection and the text input. So we've already defined a text input, so let's go ahead and wrap it with a containing view from React Native and add a style container so that we can style it later. Next, add another view to contain the components that make up the country selection. That includes a text for the flag. Let's add a style flag. A type for the country code. And the chevron down icon. Let's give the chevron down icon a width of 15 and a height of 15. Let's also give this view a style country container. Okay, so when this component first renders, a country should be selected by default. So let's define a country state variable using the useState hook. So by default, this country should be set to the first country in our countries array. So the countries array is found inside the countries file inside the constants folder. Next, let's destructure the flag and the dial code property from this country object. And set the text to the flag and the type to the dial code. Let's add a variant to the type, set it to be display medium. All right, let's start to implement some styling. First, we have the container. Give it a flex direction of row. Save. Let's also define a style for input, for the text input, call it input. Let's keep this style for now. Replace this with React Native style input. Save. And let's give the input a flex of 1 to take up the remaining space inside the container view. Next, let's add some style to the country container. Let's set the flex direction to row. And align items to center. Let's also set the border color, border bottom color to black. Of course, we need to set a width on this. Next, let's set the flag to a font size of 28 and a margin right of 8. So the input should also have a border bottom color of black and a border bottom width of 1. Let's remove the background color and the height. And let's set the typography of the text input to the same typography as the dial code. To do that, let's import typography and spread the property on all props on the display medium variant here. Inside the container, let's give it a gap of 32. Okay. Device, input, output, keyboard, toggle keyboard. Okay. The typography is good, but notice how the selection color is blue. So we're going to add some additional props to the text input component. Let's shuffle the props a bit. I want to put my style in the beginning. And let's set the selection color to be black. And let's add some additional props here. Like input mode. Set that to numeric. And the content, text content type, let's set that the telephone number. And let's also set the autofocus prop to be true. Okay. Okay, let's draw our attention back to the country selection. When pressed, a modal should appear with options to select a country. So let's create a state variable called modal visible to store the visibility of this modal. By default, it will be set to false. Let's also create a function to toggle this state variable. Handle toggle modal wrap the country selection with a pressable component from React Native. And set the onPress prop to the handle toggle modal function. Next, create a country modal component. Back inside the forward input component, wrap the view with a fragment and add the country modal to the top. The country modal should receive 3 props. Visible, determine whether or not the modal should be visible. On close, an action to be performed or a function to be executed when we close the modal. On select country, an action to be performed or a function to be executed when we select a country. Make sure to define the script types for these props so that TypeScript do not complain about them. Next, replace the view with a modal from React Native and set the visible prop to the visible prop being received. Next, inside the phone input component, let's set the visible prop to the modal visible state variable. Now, pressing the country selection should open the modal. Notice how the content of the modal appears below the status bar. To fix this, wrap the content with a safe error view from React Native. Let's also add a style to this so that we can style it later. Let's call it modal. Inside the content of the modal, the first part of the modal is the header. So let's create a view for that. Let's add a style of header. Call it header. Let's add a style and call it header. Inside a view, let's add a type. Let's give it a style of title, and the content should be select country. And let's add a variant of title bold and set the text align to center. Add the close icon and wrap the close icon with a pressable component from React Native. Let's add a style to this and set the onPress prop to the onClose prop being received. Back inside the phone input, let's set the onClose prop to the handle toggle modal function. Now we can open and close the modal. Notice how the modal just appears when we open and close it. It should actually slide when it appears, or it should actually slide instead of just appearing. To fix this, set the animation type to slide on the modal component. Now let's implement the styling. First, set the modal to a flex of 1. Set the header to a flex direction of row. Align items center. Border bottom color light gray 2. And of course the border bottom width of 1. And then we're going to set the padding vertical to be 8. Next, let's set the style for the title. Set the flex to be 1. And then for the close icon, let's set the position to be absolute and set the right to be 20. Okay, let's add the list of countries. To do this, we are going to use the section list component from React Native. The section list requires 2 props. The first prop is sections, which should be an array of objects, each object representing a section in the section list. The second prop is the render items, which should be a function that should return an item that should be rendered in the list. For now, we're going to set the sections to an empty array and the render item prop to a function that returns null. Let's define the sections outside of the component. So the first section is going to have a title of main. And the data for this section will be filtered from the array of countries, or the countries array. The countries in this section will include JM for Jamaica, US for United States, AU for Australia, CA for Canada, and UK for United Kingdom. If the country code of the country in the countries array is included in this list, then the country should be filtered and be a part of the main section data. The second section is going to have a title of side, and it should include the remaining countries. Simply put an exclamation sign before this condition. Let's add these sections to the section list. And let's return a type component and set the content to item.name to show the name of the country. Okay. Now let's wrap the type with a view. We're going to give it a style of country item. Okay. And inside this view, we're going to add another view. This view is going to have a style of right, and it's supposed to contain the flag and the dial code. Let's add a text. for the flag, item dot flag, and a type for the item dot dial code. Next, let's wrap this view with a touchable opacity. And set the onPress prop to a function that will call on select country and pass the item to this function. Seems we need to correct for TypeScript type. Let's remove this. So it should accept a country on select country this. It should be like this. Let's save this. Back inside of phone input, let's create a function handle change country. Accepts a country, and we are going to set the country and toggle the modal. And set the on select country prop to this function. Save. Now when we press or select one of these countries, it should change the country on the phone number screen. One thing to note here is that if the length of the dial code is greater or equal to 3, then the flag should not be displayed. So let's wrap the flag with curly braces, and let's define a condition. Dial code dot length is less than 3, and this. Only when the dial code is less than 3, the length of dial code is less than 3. Well, actually, it should be less than equal to 3. Like that. Only then the flag will appear. If the length of the dial code has 4 characters actually, then the flag should not appear. Plus 355. And back inside the country modal, let us add some styling. So the country item should have a flex direction of row, justify content of space between, and align items of center. And also a padding of 16. The right should have a flex direction of row, and also an align items of 8 and a gap. Sorry, align items of center and a gap of 8. Okay, so the country item padding should actually just be it should not be padding vertical, but just be padding like this. Next to the section list, let us add some item separator. item separator component. Here we're going to return a spacer with a size of 1. The spacer actually doesn't have a background color, but we can add the background color prop to this. By default, it's going to be set to transparent. This should be similar to the button component that we implemented earlier. This will be the type. Let's import colors, background color, like so. Then we're gonna change the style from an object to an array of objects. I'm gonna grab the styles from the button component and add it here. Now we should be able to set the background color on the spacer component. We're going to set it to light gray too. Next, let us set the render section footer to be the spacer with a background color of light gray 2, but a size of 20. And they should only be applied to the section with a title of main. So let's destructure section and main. And let's do a condition here. If the title is equal to main, return a spacer. Okay, let's start over here. We're gonna. Okay, I see what's happening. So if the title is equal to main, and we're going to return the spacer. Otherwise, we're going to return null. Okay, so let's draw our attention back to the text input. First, let's create a state variable to store the national number. By default, it should be an empty string. Also create a function to handle the change of this state. Accept a string, a text of type string. And let's set the national number to this text. Let's set the value of the text input to the national number and the onChange text to the handle change text function. As we type our phone number, it should be formatted. To achieve this, we can use a package called libphonenumber-js. Let's go ahead and install it. All right. Back inside the documentation, search for as you type formato. Let's copy this example and replace the text with this example. Let's import the as you type, import as you type. All right. And then replace the example number with our text. And save. Let's try typing. You'll notice that the phone number isn't being formatted. If you check back the example number, you notice that the dial code is a part of it. So we're going to grab the dial code from the country object and concatenate the text. Save this. So at this point, the number is being formatted. But before we display the number, we need to remove the dial code because it's already being shown in the country selection. So let's replace the dial code with an empty string. 703 765. Perfect. Number is being formatted. When we add another digit, you will notice the number loses its formatting. To prevent this, we need to check and prevent input that is too long. The libphonenumber-js has a function to do this. Okay, let's copy this example and use it in our code. Let's import the function. Replace the example number with our formatted number. Let's grab the country code from the country object and replace the example country code with our code. And let's set the type of this to country code from the libphonenumber-js package. So we're going to store the value of this condition inside of a variable called invalid. And if it is invalid, then we're just going to return. Save this. Close the screen and reopen it. So let's say 222 222 So if we enter another digit, it should not accept it. All right, let's pass this number to the phone number screen. Let's add a prop to the phone input component on change number. Let's add a type for it. So it's going to accept an object where we're going to set the, well, the number is going to be an object. Accept the dial code, national number, and the country code. And then we're gonna use a use effect hook. And we're gonna check every time the national number and the country changes. When they do, we are going to call this onChange number function with a dial code, national number, and code. Inside the phone number screen, let's define a state variable for the phone number. By default, it's going to be an object like this. And then we're going to set onChange number to set phone number. Save. Let's add a type right below the spacer, and let's set it to JSON.stringify phone number. So every time we change a number or the country code, dial code, the phone number screen should be updated. So we're pretty much done with the phone input. There's one thing I'd like to do. Whenever the country modal closes, the text input should focus automatically. So back inside the phone input component, we're going to use the use focus effect hook from Expert Auto. We need to define a reference to the text input component. By default, it's going to be null. It's going to be of type text input const input ref is equal to this. We're going to set the text input ref to this input ref like this. And inside the use focus effect hook, we're going to say input ref.current.focus. sometime for this to work, all we need to do is set a timeout. Set timeout. Okay. Let's see if the keyboard is open. Okay, it's not. Keyboard, toggle keyboard. Okay. When we click here and open, yeah, it's working now. Let's remove the type from the phone number screen. Also, when we press the what if my number changes, and close the screen, the text input should be focused automatically. Alright, so that's all for today. In the next video, we will start to look at the verification code screen. So I'll see you soon.